Alright, ladies and gentlemen, in this particular tutorial what we're going to cover is career points and reputation. So hopefully I'm going to make this as tight as possible. My intent is not to just go over like what politics, economy, medicine, and so forth do, but also to give you some strategies with regards to how to apply them throughout the playthrough, what people typically do with them, and really give you some insight on how to utilize them during your campaign. So first I'm going to focus on reputation. Which, give me a moment here, I'm going to pull up my notes. I did take some pretty robust notes on this so that I could not only make it as tight as possible, but cover all the things I want to cover. So if you're under the Army tab and you see this up here, this reputation thing, which I covered in the previous video for the overview, you do get this based on your wins and draws, and you also lose them based on your losses and then what you spend. What I would say is if you're going to spend reputation, we're probably going to want to focus on is either on the 24-pound howitzers, which are an artillery piece. Let's see if we got some I can show you here. 24-pound howitzers. See how they're 3,000 just for one, and there's only 6 available in the shop? So that's actually, a lot of money. You think about get all 6. Spending 18,000 out of your 54. Now, granted, we're only in like 1862. I just grabbed just a random playthrough that I had, so just ignore the stats and everything. I'm just using this as a demonstration purpose. But these 24-pound howitzers are kind of the community at large agree that it's one of the best artillery pieces you can have. They're just very well rounded. They're kind of good at everything. They're great at the damage, as you can see here, but they're also very expensive. So if you're going to spend reputation, I would spend it on the 24-pound howitzers. Or the Fayettevilles, which is an infantry piece. I don't think they're available yet on this campaign here. Here they are. Okay. So they're 113, which is one of the most expensive rifles you can get in the game. But as you can see, there's only 153 of them. So right now, it's really only going to be worth having them on one of your skirmishing units with 150 troops. But there's other rifles that are better for your skirmishing units than the Fayetteville. What this is really helpful in is for your infantry brigades, but there's only 150 of them right now, and they don't replenish too quickly, especially on the Confederate side of things. So if you're going to burn reputation, I would say kind of check this reputation tab every time you're kind of going through a new campaign. Check it and see, hey, can I buy any Fayettevilles with my reputation, and do it that way. So 24-pound howitzers or your Fayetteville rifles. Otherwise, as the Confederacy, what you probably should be spending your reputation points on is bulk. So buying more Lorenz, for example. Lorenz tends to be kind of your best all-around rifle in terms of it kind of does a little bit of everything and it's affordable. So buying quantity over quality. So, for example, if you're arming up a lot of your brigades with Lorenz, using your reputation to get more Lorenz to kind of continue to build up your brigades that way. On the Union side of things, what you should be spending your reputation on, if you're not spending it on the 24-pound howitzers, is on morale boost or generals. So if we were the Union, we'd be looking at these generals here to spend our reputation on, because generally speaking, the Union does not have as effective general leadership as the Confederacy does, and so you want to use your reputation on that. Or what you want to do is just not burn any of your reputation at all, because as your reputation gets higher, it gives you a bonus to morale. The morale of the Confederacy tends to be pretty good. When you go and recruit a rookie, for example, they already come with a bonus to morale. I think it tells you up here. Yeah, there you go. You have 21 morale. If we were to switch over to the Union, the morale would be a little bit lower. And so you don't really need the morale boost with the Confederacy, whereas with the Union, it can be very helpful, especially since as a Union, you already have more money, generally, and more supply. So you're going to want this reputation to build up, because at some point, it's going to start giving you a morale boost, and that can be very helpful for you. So to summarize, if you're the CSA, you're going to want to spend your reputation on 24-pound howitzers or Fayetteville long guns, rather. And then in lieu of that, then you're going to want to spend your reputation on really kind of quantity over quality with regards to long guns. Once you're kind of satisfied that those categories have all been checked and you're good, then I would probably say spend it as you want, right? So more recruits or whatever, but those should be your priorities. And then if you're the Union, just let this reputation build up for the morale bonus, or spend your reputation on generals, because you're going to need good quality generals as the Union, and those are going to be in short supply as you go through the campaign. So that's all I wanted to focus on for reputation. Now let's focus on the actual career points here. We're going to focus on politics first. Let me go here. Okay, so politics. What is politics? Ironically enough, even though it is the first one in here, and this isn't necessarily in order of priority, it does tend to be the most prioritized aspect that you're going to want to improve upon in your playthrough first. Why? Because it gives you gold and recruits. So the way it works is that the first level is 2.5, the second level is 5, and it kind of goes up by 2.5 every time you put a point into it. So if you cap out on politics, you get it all the way up to 10, you're looking at a 25% increase in gold and recruits per battle. So think about that. If we're going to go to Shiloh, for example, here, if we won, we get 146,600 money, and we get 12,700 recruits. Well, if you take that number and you times it by 25, right, you're looking at 146,600 times 0.25. You're getting an additional 36,650 money just from this one battle. And if you think about that over the course of an entire campaign, that could be a pretty profound increase in the amount of money and recruits that you're getting. So people tend to focus their attention on the politics first. That's going to be their priority. Just looking at my notes here. Yep. And so what people do is they'll focus on politics and army organization first. And I would say I generally do that too. Ignore all this stuff. This is like a very old playthrough of mine. This is like when I first started playing and I was just kind of figuring the game out. And then kind of go from there. So one of the ways that you can, I would say, strategize in terms of your career points, how to build them out over time, is all of these have benefits. I don't want to say there's a category here that's worthless. I know there's some people that might disagree about reconnaissance, for example, or even medicine, but I think they all have their uses. It's just a matter of the way that you play and what your strategy is. However, I would say go into it with the mindset of, these are going to be my categories that I prioritize over everything else, and then the other categories I'm going to kind of fill out over time. I would recommend that you prioritize politics and army organization first, and then build around that, with politics being your priority for the reasons I just stated before in terms of the benefits that you get from it. So that's a nice way to pivot into army organization. What does army organization do? The nice thing, again, if you hover over these arrows, it'll tell you. But it's going to give you the number of corps and the number of divisions and the number of brigades that you can field at any given time. You can only have 2,500 troops in a brigade, up to 2,500. Right now we're limited because of our stats here. I want to say army organization increases this to, yes. So see there, the next level, you can have 4 brigades with 2,000 troops. So you basically can only have so many corps and so many divisions and so many brigades based on your army organization. I think a probably good number to have with army organization to start is around 4. You want about 3 to 4 points, really, to start in the game and get up to there. So I think 3 or 4 for right now is a good point to have. We're in 1862 over at Shiloh. And as you can see that with having 3 army organization, I can have 3 divisions of 4 brigades each, and then I can have an entire another corps. And in Shiloh, I think you can field 2 corps. And we're not going to have enough money or troops to fill out 2 full corps, right? So what you're going to want to do with your army organization is just, as you go through the game, you're going to know, I'm kind of getting to the point where I don't have enough space for more troops or more artillery or whatever. That's going to be your cue to up your army organization. So once you get up to about 3, I think you're good for a while. What you're going to want later on in the game is you're going to want enough points to be able to field at least 20 brigades per corps. What does that mean? That means having 4 divisions of 5 brigades. All right. I can't do that yet. I need to get higher army organization. I want to say it's it might be level 5. Yeah. So army organization 5 is going to get you there. So you're probably going to want maybe around by the time you get Antietam, I don't know, be able to field 20 brigades with a single corps But right now, we're good. I would say it is possible to survive battles on level 6 army organization, even up to like Stones River. So if you're not sure where the Battle of Stones River is, go research it. But I would say you don't need more than 6 army organization up until you get to about the Battle of Stones River. But you do obviously want to increase it as we go on. The final thought on army organization is really going to be structured around your cores. So the battles of Shiloh are going to be one core per. So just to demonstrate that for you. I like having a second core here, by the way, just so I can basically move brigades out and put them here, kind of warehouse them. If I don't want to use them in a particular battle, that's the only reason I have the second core. But you don't need it. Not for this early in the game. But if you went to Shiloh, for example. And by the way, it's pretty funny. Every time I say Shiloh, my dog looks because my dog's name is Shiloh. But here's the core, right? So this is completely wasted. So you can get away with 1 core up through the campaign in Shiloh. But you're going to need 2 core for Gaines Mill, Malvern Hill, and 2nd Manassas, excuse me, Chancellorsville, and Chickamauga. And then you're going to want 3 core for Antietam, Fredericksburg, Stones River, Gettysburg, Cold Harbor. All right. So use that as your barometer in terms of kind of how to keep army organization up. Again, let me just say that one more time for those of you who may have missed it. I use army organization as a way of, okay, how many core do I need? Right now, Shiloh, you're good with 3 army organization. You don't need 4. And then at some point, you're going to want to be able to field 2 core of basically 20 brigades per core. So you're going to need 4 army organization. And so you're probably going to want 4 army organization by the time you fight the Battle of Gaines Mill, Malvern Hill, 2nd Manassas, Chancellorsville, and Chickamauga. All right. Before you fight the Battle of Antietam, you're going to want 6 army organization. That way you can field 3 core. And you're going to want those 3 core for Antietam, Fredericksburg, Stones River, Gettysburg, and Cold Harbor. All right, so hopefully that kind of helps you figure out, okay, where do I want my army organization to be throughout the game? I would also say, I'm focusing on cores in terms of your army organization point expenditures. Army organization also affects the amount of troops you can have in your brigades. I will focus and talk about brigade size in a separate video. Just know that for the purposes of this video, that army organization also affects the number of troops you have in your brigades. So right now I can only have 1,500. If I want a 2,000 size man brigade, then I'm going to have to up this to 4, which then will allow me to have 2,000 troops in a brigade, right? So that's army organization. Let's go up here. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. So for medicine, or actually let's go back to economy since we're, I know I bounced around a little bit, but let's go back to economy. Economy has some importance, so I wouldn't say it's like politics in terms of, I think, making it a priority. What does economy do? It's necessary for the maintenance of veteran brigades with high costs in weapons, right? So what does it say specifically? It says reduces the cost of purchasing new weapons. Chances are, if you're playing, the way that I say most people play, what you're doing is your green brigades have cheap weapons, and your more veteran brigades have nicer weapons. So I would scale the economy skill points with the game. So the further into the game you get, the more you should be putting into economy, because the more veteran brigades you're potentially going to have, which then means, and the larger the army you're going to have, which means you're going to have a larger upkeep in terms of replacing, newer weapons, nicer weapons, that sort of thing. Early game, you don't really need economy because you're just not going to be spending a lot of money on guns, one in quantity, let alone quality. But as you progress through the game, you're probably going to want to put some points in economy. How does it work? It's kind of similar to politics in terms of the percentage. It's a 2.5% discount per point. So as you can see here, we have a 2.5% discount, which is from our 1 economy. Our income is actually from politics. That's a 2.5. So you can see on the one hand, politics gives us 2.5% increase in income, whereas economy, it's like a coupon. It's a coupon on your purchases. So you're getting a 2.5% discount per weapon that you buy or artillery piece that you buy and that sort of thing. And then it scales up per point. So as you can see, 2 points would be 5%, 3 points would be 7.5%, all the way up to a 25% discount. Now you can see, right, that scales. So if the gun's cheap, that 25% really isn't that much of a discount. The gun's expensive, or the artillery piece is expensive, a 25% discount could be far more considerable. So just bear that in mind, that you probably want your economy here to kind of scale as you go through the game with a larger military and more expensive weapons and artillery that you're trying to field. Medicine. Now, I think there's varying degrees of opinion on what people like about medicine. Medicine can be really helpful, but the catch is you have to lose troops in order for it to be valuable. So it's kind of a catch-22, right? Because on the one hand, you don't want to lose troops because that's just money and manpower that you got to spend to replace them. But on the other hand, if you're going to lose troops, why not mitigate it, right? Which is what medicine does. It mitigates your losses. So what do I mean by that? It's basically a percentage of casualties lost. So if you lose 2,000 troops and you have, well, let's see, what's the percentage? We have 6%. What is it? 8%. So it goes up by 2%, by the way. So say we have medicine up to 20%, and we lose 2,000 troops. Well, then 200 men are going to be replaced. So basically, instead of losing 2,000, we lose 1,800. Is how it's going to work. So early game, is medicine helpful? No. Why? Because you're just not fielding a whole lot of troops, right? So again, it's kind of like the economy thing, where if you're buying a $50 gun or let's say a $10 gun, is a 5% discount really helpful? No. If you're buying a $100 gun, is a 5% discount helpful? Yeah. Same thing with medicine, right? If you're losing 100, say you lose 1,000 troops in a battle, getting 100 troops back isn't going to really be all that helpful. You lose 15, 20,000 troops in a battle, like say Gettysburg or Antietam, all of a sudden this medicine stat can be pretty helpful. So same thing with economy. I would say just scale it with the size of your army. Late game, medicine is very, very important. Early game, not so much. I would probably recommend maxing out medicine by the time you get to the Stones River battle. The reason I say that is by the time you get to Stones River, you're fielding 3 corps. Theoretically, you should be fielding 3 corps. And you're fielding 3 corps, give or take, 2.5, maybe 3 full corps of troops of like 20 brigades each, if you're doing really well. At a minimum, 2 full corps and then a 3rd corps that's kind of maybe half full. That's a lot of troops. You're probably going to lose a lot of troops in battle. And so having this medicine is going to be a great way to mitigate not only your overall losses, but your losses to veterans. By the time you get to Stones River, you're going to have a fair number of veterans. And this also replaces veterans because what it does, it doesn't replace, like say we lose 3,000 troops in this next battle. It's 3,000 troops, but it's broken up by a brigade. So say Siegfried loses 800, but Walker only loses 200. Well, that's 1,000 between the two of them, but Siegfried's going to get a lot more of those troops back than Walker because he lost a lot more. Well, if Siegfried is our veteran brigade, for example, which is not here, but say it is, that's beneficial to you, right? Because that's 800 veteran troops that you just lost. Well, you're going to get a lot more of those veteran troops back. It's not going to be split between the two of them. You're going to get a lot more of those veteran troops back if you have a higher medicine rating. So it's going to save you a lot of money and a lot of replacement value. And then say, those 200 non-veteran troops that you lost, you're going to get a lot fewer rookies back, but you can get more veterans back. So that's why I say medicine, you want to scale it, and then preferably maybe have it close to max by the time you get to the Stone Rivers battle, and just kind of go from there. Okay, training. Sorry, give me one moment here. Okay, same thing with training in terms of scaling. Ignore this, by the way. It's Shiloh 1862. There's no way I would have training up to 4. What does training do? It cheapens the recruitment of veterans, right? So as you can see here, it makes them cheaper. Now, there's different ways to play the game. Don't get me wrong. All of this is kind of anecdotal. A lot of things I'm saying. I'm not saying do this way or do it that way. I'm simply saying what the general consensus is on how to do it. But the great thing with this game is it's a sandbox game, so you can really kind of do things however you want. But most people hold off on the training as well because they like to field an army with maybe just 2 elite veteran brigades, and that's it. The rest of your brigades are mostly rookies with a mixture of some veterans, but you're really going to only have 2 brigade that are like 2-3-star type brigades, which means those are your kind of elite brigades that have lots of veterans in them. And then everybody else is going to be like 1-star or no star. And the reason for that is that maintaining a veteran brigade is very expensive. One final point to make on medicine. If you lose 800 troops here and you have a high medicine rating, not only do you get a lot of troops back, you also get their guns back. Okay, so if you have an elite brigade that has not only a lot of veterans, but really good guns, your medicine's not only going to return those troops to duty, it's also going to return those guns to duty, which means less money for you to spend on guns. So that's an important point that I missed that to consider with regards to medicine. Going back again to the training, though, with regards to veterans, it does decrease the percentage cost for veterans. I want to say it's, let's see here, it's training. Yeah, again, 2.5%. That's how it scales per point. So this is going to be really specific to your veteran brigades. So it just depends how you play the game. If you like to maintain just a couple of veteran brigades and then everything else is kind of just raw numbers, quantity over quality, so to speak, your training stat's not going to be as important. But if you're more kind of along the lines of like the modern U.S. American military, which is smaller military force but very elite, then you're going to want a high training number because you're going to have more veterans in your army, which means you're going to want to make it less expensive to recruit those veterans. I would say, probably the Union side of things, you're going to have the more flexibility to have, more veterans than probably the Confederacy. But just be aware that training is very specific to veterans. And so depending on the way that you play, whether you want lots of veterans or just a very handful of brigades that are veteran status, it's going to dictate how you play with this number here in training. Logistics. What does logistics cover? Literally your ammo. All right, that's what logistics cover. It's your ammo. I'd say there's kind of mixed opinions on logistics. Some people don't really find it helpful. Other people do. Part of the reason that people don't find it altogether helpful is that you can have commanders that will give you logistic bonuses. And so you can basically get this stat from elsewhere in the game. So you can go to, say, Protobro Lee here. I don't think he has. Yeah, so he's getting plus 20% to ammo. So that is a logistic stat. So you can play around with this. You can say, you know what, instead of putting anything in logistics, I'm just going to find a way to get this somewhere else. See how that's a 15% additional ammo to the start of a battle. If you don't want to put career points into logistics, you can put it into like your generals. All right. Now, granted, that just means that your general is not giving you a bonus to something else, but it's another way to play the game. It gives you some flexibility on decision making, and you can kind of go from there. What this means, though, in terms of like starting ammo, is, for example, if you're on a battlefield and there's basically supply depots, pre-existing non-mobile supply depots, they're going to have more ammo in them based on your logistics rating here. Also, too, your supply wagons, this number up here is going to be affected by your logistics in terms of the amount of supply that they go into the game. And then also the amount of ammo that your particular brigades and artillery kind of go into the game with. But again, you don't have to necessarily invest in this. You can go to your corps commander and have them do supply and apply that way. By the way, this bonus here does not apply to the second corps. It's just the first corps, because he's a corps commander, first corps. All right. All right, finally, reconnaissance. The most, I think, probably controversial of them all, because I think there's very strong opinions on both sides in terms of the advantages of putting anything in reconnaissance. What does reconnaissance do? It does a couple things. So first, on the main map here, it will affect this intelligence service. So it's going to tell you these numbers here. It's going to be more accurate and give you more information. All right. So right now it's bare bones because we have nothing in reconnaissance. That can be helpful before you actually go into a battle or get to the final battle here of Shiloh. But additionally, what else does reconnaissance do? in-game battle, it gives you a lot more information. So I think the biggest advantage to having Reconnaissance is at 4 points of Reconnaissance, it's going to unlock for you in-game, in battle, on the power bar up at the top there, the blue and the red. It's going to tell you basically when new units come on the battlefield. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you're split up the middle 50-50 and not a whole lot of combats happen yet, and all of a sudden it goes to 75% blue and 25% red, that tells you that basically Union strength just increased by a lot of percent. And that's why it's now 75% battlefield Union and 25% Confederates. Or, say you're in the middle of battle and you're firing back and forth and you're suffering equal casualties, and the same thing happens where that power bar adjusts. That's telling you that reinforcements have arrived on the battlefield for the enemy, and to kind of be aware of that. So that's a big help to having Reconnaissance at 4. Because the way the AI system works with regards to pools of men per campaign, I'd say at least having 2 points basically at or after Antietam is probably the best bet to do, and then to kind of scale it up from there. The reason is that by the time you get to the Battle of Antietam, you have lots of troops taking the battlefield, and it's going to be much more difficult for you to predict the size of your opponent, what sort of troops are bringing the battlefield, and so forth. So I'd say having 2 points by Antietam or shortly thereafter is a good approach. Or 4 if you like to have the intel in terms of who's arriving on the battlefield. Also, a general with good reconnaissance, it allows you to know the type of weapons that are being used by a particular brigade. It lets you know the type of artillery that's taking the battlefield. It lets you know the number of artillery taking the battlefield, the number of troops taking the battlefield. So it's really a matter of, I think, taste, right? If you want a more tactical approach to the game, it makes sense to me that you want to invest at least 4 points in reconnaissance. If you kind of prefer the more fog of war approach and using skirmishers and detached skirmishers to scout out the battlefield and try and get a read on the disposition of troops both in the front lines as well as in the rear, obviously don't really invest much in reconnaissance. The fact of the matter, though, is unless you have a lot of cavalry, it's going to be very difficult for you to know what sort of reinforcements are coming to the battlefield, because your cavalry are going to get stuck behind the enemy lines and get shot, or the battlefields are going to just be so large. Because I'm talking for reconnaissance being helpful for grand battles. I'm not talking for these little mini battles. I'm talking for grand battles. It's going to be much more difficult with just cavalry to scout the battlefield and know what you're dealing with. A lot of people swear by the fact they can go the entire game without reconnaissance, and I'm sure you can. But from what I've heard, the people who have invested in reconnaissance, even though they felt like they could still beat the game without it, they were very, very glad to have at least 4 in reconnaissance by the time they got to, like, say, Richmond or DC, because it just really helped them in battle planning and adjusting in the middle of a battle on what to do. And so I think at a minimum, you want to have 4 in reconnaissance, either sometime after Antietam or maybe shortly after Antietam. And then after that, you can put more into it beyond that. But I think at a minimum, probably have 4. All right. Last but not least, on career points, before I conclude this video, these little awards here, they're kind of cool. They're just going to give you some flavor and taste of the game. You can basically get ribbons as you progress through the campaign. And this is basically your general getting these ribbons, and this is what he technically would wear if he went to like a ball or something. And then finally, you have your victories, and then basically every battle you fight, how you did. Victory, draw, loss, those sort of things. All right, so hopefully that helps y'all with deciding on how to invest in career points. Again, to summarize, I think you prioritize politics and army organization. You want army organization between 3 and 4. You want to try and max out politics. And then economy and medicine, you're going to want to scale it as you progress through the campaign. Logistics is really kind of up to you how you want to play that. Same thing with reconnaissance. And then for training, depending on the method that you want to build your army, if you want a veteran-heavy army, you're going to want to prioritize training. And if you're going to do more of kind of a handful of elite brigades, then training is not going to be as important for you. And with that, I will conclude this video. Thank you.